Hello, my name is Jason Hernandez, and I'm the audit supervisor for the Financial Hardship team. And I'm here today to give you an overview of the Financial Hardship program. Okay. What is the Financial Hardship program? Well, the basic purpose of the program is to assist districts and COEs that cannot provide their full matching share for their project. Typically, new construction projects are 50-50, with modernization projects being 60-40, being 60% state share and 40% the district share. And for those of the districts that cannot come up with their full matching share, they can apply for the financial hardship program. And what does that program do? Well, we have an example of a new construction project there on the slide. On the left, you see a non-financial hardship project. That project is a smaller, $1 million project for total funding. You can see the state share of 500,000 and the district share of 500,000. Well, if that district does not have their matching share or does not have the full amount their matching share, they can apply for the financial hardship program and potentially receive up to 100%. In the example to the right there, the district in that case did qualify for hardship and they had $100,000 that they could apply towards their project. That meant that the state would come up with the other 400,000 that would make the full $500,000 state share. So in this case, you see the financial hardship share of 400,000, the district share of 100,000. That's their available funds or their cash contribution, and that makes up the full 500,000 of the district share, along with the state share. Then makes your full funding for the project of $1 million. Okay, so what do we do in a financial review, and how do we determine whether the district qualifies for hardship or not? Well, we do a review and we break it up into two phases. It's really one review, but for ease for the districts and for ease of processing on the state's end, we break it up into a phase one and phase two hardship review. Sometimes you may hear the phase one referred to as a light switch test. That's basically in phase one, we're checking to see if the district meets one of the qualifying criteria for the program. And then later on, when I get into the next slide and talk about the phase two, that's more about reviewing the district's all their funding to see if they have any, if they do qualify, what funding, if any, do they have available to contribute towards their project. Okay, so back to phase one. So how do we determine whether or not a district qualifies for hardship? Well, it's two parts. First, the district must be levying the maximum developer fee justified under law. And this developer fee changes every even year. It was most recently changed at the January 2026 board, where the state allocation board approved the new level one fees. You can see there on the screen that it's $5.37 for residential and 87 cents per square foot for a commercial project. So the district must be levying that prior to coming in, and then they must meet one of the following criteria. The first one is a long-term debt of 60% or more of their total debt capacity. We take the district's assessed valuation, we times that by 1.25% for non-unified, 2.5% for unified districts. We get a total bonding capacity, and then we compare that to what capital facility related long-term debt the district has and come up with a percentage. And if that's 6% or greater, then the district qualifies. And this is the most common way that districts do qualify for the financial hardship program. Next, they can also qualify if they've had a successful voter bond within the past 2 years. This can be either the traditional 2/3 bond, or it can be the more common Prop 39 bond. But either way, if the district has passed a bond within the past 2 years and they're using those proceeds on SFP projects, then they can qualify for hardship that way. Third way is if you're a county office of education, you automatically meet the phase one light switch test and you move on to the phase two when we do the review of available funding. And the fourth way, which may be most pertinent to small school districts and those districts participating in the small school program, is if your total bond capacity is 15 million or less. That threshold was increased due to the passage of Proposition 2 prior to that, and for any applications that were received prior to October 31st, 2024, it was the total bonding capacity was 5 million or less, but that has been increased to 15 million or less. And you can also see the footnote at the bottom. It says the amount will be adjusted effective July 1st, 2026. So every July 1st, going forward, there'll be an adjustment according to an inflation index to see how much that $15 million threshold would increase or not. But currently, it is 15 million or less for the small schools. If you don't meet one of those four qualifying criteria, then you can come in under other evidence of reasonable effort approved by the state allocation board. You're basically appealing under that other evidence, and there's no set criteria. You just have to present your case to the board as to what unusual circumstance in the district prevents them from qualifying for hardship and also prevents them from um, having their matching share on their needed school projects. Okay, so you've passed that phase one test, and so now we move on to phase two of your eligibility determination. And basically, in phase two, the OPC reviews the district or the COE's capital facility related funding to determine the amount of funds available for the district's match. We look at all the district's capital facility related funding, which are typically funds 21 through fund 50. Fund 21, where you typically a district will have their local bond funds. If you have a certificate of a participation, those COP proceeds are typically deposited in Fund 21. We'll look at your Fund 25, your developer fee fund, any mitigation fees you may have there, or Melrose fees would be deposited in Fund 25. If you received any prior projects and prior state funding for projects, those will be usually deposited in your Fund 35, your County School Facilities Fund. We'll look at that fund. We look at Fund 40, which is kind of your catch-all for saving funds for capital facility related purposes. We'll look at that Fund 40 fund as well, or any other capital facility related funding the district may have. In those funds, we review revenue and expenditures for up to the past 3 years, and we'll review all transfers in and out of those capital facility related funding. We may look at any special reserve funds to determine if those are available or not. We'll make sure if they are restricted for specific purposes that they're not counted as available funds during the course of the hardship review. And then we'll also look to see if there's any eligible encumbrances that will reduce the amount of available funds in the district's various funds too. But basically, we're looking at all your potential available capital facility related funding. Okay. So the district or the COA has met one of the qualifying criteria from the phase one. They're levying the 2026 level one developer fees, and they meet one of the qualifying criteria. Say their total bond capacity is $8 million. Well, that's less than the 15 million, so they do qualify, and their available funds are less than the required district match. In the example before, on one of the second slide, the district's required match was 500,000. They had available funds of 100,000, which is less. So then, therefore, the state will fund the difference between the district match and the district's available funds. In that case, we funded, the state would fund the 400,000. The financial hardship approval is valid for 6 months. And if you do get approved, then the qualifying COE or district may also request a separate site, design, project assistance, and or project and construction management grants prior to requesting the full funding. You may come in for the modernization projects that have to apply for the small school program in November. That's for your preliminary grant. You can apply for that. For the new construction in February of 2020, in January of 2027, you can apply for that. And then after your 6-month period expires, the district or the COE will need to reestablish their financial hardship status. So more than likely, if you get your hardship approval up front, you get that preliminary funding for the small school program. By the time you convert and you're ready for your full funding, you more than likely have to reapply for financial hardship status at that time. Okay. Bridge financing. That's very important. That has been a topic that's come up a lot recently. But basically, if a district or COE needs to move forward with their project, with their school facility program project prior to receiving state funding or prior to that state funding becoming available, then they may need to use bridge financing or interim borrowing to move their project forward. And if they do that, They need to do so making sure that they meet the requirements detailed in S&P Regulation Section 1859.81I, which includes but is limited to the following. The district must contact the OPC in writing with their request to bridge finance or interfund borrow prior to making any project expenditures. And you want to do that so that if you need to move forward with your project and any expenditures you make on your project prior to receiving that state funding will not count against you, meaning we won't use it to reduce the amount of financial hardship proportion that you receive for the project. So let's say you had to spend, 500,000 ahead of time to move the project forward before the project becomes funding, the funding becomes available. If you did not request bridge financing or interfund borrowing, then potentially that 500,000 would reduce the hardship grant that you receive for the project. So, but if you need to move forward and it's only temporary financing or temporary borrowing, then you can let us know ahead of time and those expenditures won't count against you. And you also have to have a school board resolution detailing the district or the COE's bridge financing / interfunding borrowing request. Okay, what is in that school board resolution? Well, there's some specific information that we need in there. And a lot of times you can submit a draft of your school board resolution ahead of time to our office, and someone on the financial hardship team will review it for you, let you know that it has all the required elements, if it's missing anything. And that way you can update your draft before you actually send it to your school board for approval. The most important things on there, you need to name the specific project or projects that are going to be moved forward with the bridge financing. You want to list the specific debt instrument or the interfund borrowing to be used. If you're going to use a COP, that you list that specific COP. If you're borrowing funds from the general fund for interfund borrowing, you specifically list the general fund on there so we know what is the specific funding source. And then you also want to list the maximum amount to be borrowed or transferred. So those first things are very important. That you're listing the specific project you're moving forward or projects. You're listing the specific debt instrument or interfund borrowing that you're going to use, and the maximum amount to be borrowed or to be transferred in order to move the projects forward. And then you want to have a statement that once any funds are received, they will be used to retire the debt or transfer back to the original fund within 60 days. And also acknowledgement that any expenditures made prior to the school board resolution will reduce the financial hardship apportionment. And then just one more quick point. We were asked recently we're asking to list the maximum amount to be borrowed or transferred. And someone asked, well, what if we don't know? What if it's only an estimate right now? Well, in that case, you list the amount of the estimate. If it turns out to be more, all you have to do is come back in, do a second board resolution for the additional amount. So initially you thought it was going to be $5 million. That's what you listed on your board resolution. And it turns out it's going to be $6 million. Then you come back, you do a second school board resolution for the same project, the same funding source, and then for a maximum amount of $1 million. So therefore, between the two board resolutions, you have a maximum amount of $6 million not to exceed. So we can always make that adjustment by doing a second school board resolution. Okay, so what is the overall review process for districts in the small school district program? Well, first, when they'll come in for the preliminary funding, they will submit that SAB 50-12 with the financial hardship box checked. And then later on, when they're converting for their full funding, they'll submit the SAB 50-04 for that full funding, also with the financial hardship request checked. And like I mentioned before, district, when they do come in for the initial funding, we do the hardship review at that time. It is good for 6 months. So therefore, by the time the project converts, because you have up to 4 years to convert your project, then you'll have to reestablish your financial hardship at that time. At that point, the small school program team will let my financial hardship team know that the district is requesting financial hardship status. We will prepare a letter requesting the information along with a financial hardship checklist for phase 1 information and a financial hardship checklist for phase 2 information. And then the district will have 30 days to provide those signed checklists along with all the required documentation to us for our hardship review. And then that financial hardship review and the application are both processed concurrently. So we're both working on both sides. The small school team is working to process the application to a certain board, and at the same time, the financial hardship team is doing the same, looking at the district's finances to process them to a board as well, to the same board. Okay, so what are some top tips? Well, the main thing is you want to ensure that your financial hardship phase one and phase two checklist document package is complete. That's the main thing that will hold up the financial hardship review, and potentially a district may not qualify for hardship because of missing documentation. And in the end, if it is still incomplete, your package will return to the district and not processed, and you may have to move forward as a non-financial hardship project if you still want to move forward with your project. What are some examples of missing documentation? They can potentially include the district not levying the current developer fees. You have to be levying the current developer fees or have a current justification study saying that you cannot levy the current fees, or that you, for some rare cases, that you cannot levy fees at all. Again, those current fees are the 2026 level one fees that was passed in January of this year. Your package not having a school board resolution for the current fees, you want to make sure you include that in your package, because the developer fees are one of the first things that we look at, and that potentially holds you up. And you want to make sure that you have the current assessed evaluation from your county audit controller. We use that assessed evaluation to determine the district's total bonding capacity, to see if you meet one of the qualifying criteria, or to see, we compare that to your debt to see if you're at 60% or greater. So you want the current one that comes out every August. If you're submitting around January 1st of 2026, the most current assessed valuation from the county audit controller is the August of 2025, because that information comes out every August in every August. You want to make sure that either you have a letter from the county audit controller showing all the information, or the actual report, and we have at least the cover and any other information that actually shows it's from the county audit controller. We're not going to accept just a spreadsheet with your information. We need the source documentation in order for us to move forward. So you want to make sure you have that most current information from the county audit controller, and that it is source documentation. You want to make sure you have all the fund worksheets you need, and none of them are missing. For all your capital project funds. If you have bond funds, we need a fund worksheet for Fund 21. If you should be charging the developer fees. If you have any prior developer fees, those should be in Fund 25. If you have any prior state projects through the school facility program or the full day kindergarten program, we should see that funding in Fund 35. So you just want to make sure you have a fund worksheet for every one of your capital facility related funds, and that you have a general ledger detail report for each one of those funds. If some of those are missing, that will definitely hold you up. And also that you have one not just for that fund, but for every fiscal year, because we can potentially look at up to 3 years worth of information. So we want to make sure that we have all the required general ledger detail reports for each fiscal year that we're looking at. And then you want to include an expenditure report for the project expenditures spent to date on the hardship project that you're coming in for or requesting financial hardship for, or a letter stating that no expenditures have been submitted to date. And then if you're claiming any encumbrances in those funds, an encumbrance in Fund 21 against your local bond funds, or an encumbrance in Fund 25 against those developer fees that you currently have sitting in your Fund 25, then you want to make sure that you have a contract for all your requested encumbrances to make sure, so we can verify that it is actual eligible liability and an actual contract against those fundings, and it is an eligible encumbrance. So again, just make sure you have all the current information. If you're ever not sure before you submit your package, please contact us. We can walk you through all the checklists. We can walk you through what type of documentation we need to do the review. So it's definitely better to ask upfront than to hold up your review and potentially not get your financial hardship approval processed. Okay, here's some general information. This is our plug to join the OPSC email subscription list. That first one you see there is the general email list when our office sends out email blasts that go out to all the districts at once. It gives you a lot of pertinent information. You definitely want to make sure you're on there. You will receive all the SAB and OPSE meeting notifications, so you know when all the meetings are happening. You'll get copies of the agenda for all the state allocation board meetings. If there's any stakeholder meetings, you'll get agendas for those as well. Whenever they do any PIF or priority and funding round announcements, you'll get those announcements as well, and as well as any other SAB or OPSC information. So it's definitely worth getting on that email subscription list, and I highly encourage it if you're not already on there. Okay, some point of contacts. Got a lot of information over all these presentations. So you see the general OPC website. You can go in for information. If you need to contact the small school district program directly, you see Casey Barr's information there, her phone number and her email address. You can also send general inquiries to that email address for the small school program. Casey, along with everyone on all her staff on her team, access that email, so they'll definitely get back to you on your inquiries. If you have any general questions for program services, you see Brian LePass contact information there. He is the chief of program services, along with their two operations managers, Joshua and Tracy. They both are all three of them are all extremely knowledgeable. They have a lot of experience, and they can definitely help you out with any questions you may have. If you have anything related to the financial hardship program, you can see my information there as well. And I'll be happy to help you or direct you to one of my staff on my team, and we'll definitely get your questions answered. If you want to walk through the financial hardship checklist or anything ahead of time, we can do that. If you have questions as you're gathering that information, please contact us and we'll walk you through all the required information. Okay. If you have any questions, we can please ask and contact us at any time. And again, I just want to thank you for joining me today for this overview of the Financial Hardship Program. And again, my name is Jason Hernandez, and I'm the audit supervisor for the Financial Hardship team here at OPSC. And please contact us with any questions you may have. Thank you.